The morning Caroline Reed spotted him through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Iron Core Fitness. She was 30 seconds away from canceling her membership entirely. She had joined this upscale gym 3 months ago with grand visions of transformation, but life kept getting in the way. Her advertising agency job drained every ounce of energy from her body, and most mornings she trudged through workouts like a zombie, counting down the minutes until she could escape back to her apartment and collapse. But today was different. Today, she watched a man step out of a sleek black car that probably cost more than her annual salary, and something about the way he moved caught her attention. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that looked deliberately tousled in a way that suggested he had better things to worry about than his appearance. Even from a distance, she could see the sharp line of his jaw, the confident stride that spoke of someone who owned every room he entered. Caroline shook her head and pushed through the gym doors. She was here to work out, not to gawk at attractive strangers. She had a presentation due Friday, a mother who called 3 times a day asking when she would settle down, and a credit card bill that made her stomach hurt every time she thought about it. Romance was nowhere on her priority list. She changed quickly in the locker room, pulling her dark blonde hair into a ponytail and examining herself critically in the mirror. At 26, she was exactly average in every way. Average height, average build, average features that could be pretty with enough effort but mostly just looked tired. Nothing that would catch the attention of a man who drove a car worth 6 figures. The weight section was relatively empty this early on a Tuesday morning. Caroline grabbed a pair of dumbbells and found a spot near the mirrors, trying to remember the proper form for shoulder presses. She had just started her first set when she noticed him in her peripheral vision. The man from the parking lot had changed into athletic gear that showed off a physique that clearly came from dedicated effort, not genetics alone. He moved through the gym with the ease of someone familiar with the space, nodding to a few regulars before setting up at the bench press station directly across from her. Caroline forced herself to focus on her own workout. She finished her shoulder presses, moved on to lateral raises, and tried not to notice when he loaded the bar with plates that would have crushed her instantly. She was reaching for her water bottle when their eyes met in the mirror. He smiled. Not a polite acknowledgement, but a genuine smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes and made her heart do something stupid in her chest. Caroline looked away quickly, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. She busied herself with adjusting her shoes, suddenly convinced that her workout clothes were too tight, too bright, too everything. When she looked up again, he was focused on his lift, and she let herself breathe. The next 45 minutes passed in a strange dance. Caroline moved through her routine, acutely aware of exactly where he was at every moment. She told herself it was just normal awareness, the kind anyone would have of another person sharing their space. But when she struggled with her last set of bicep curls, she knew he was watching, and the knowledge made her push through the burn with gritted teeth. She was gathering her things when he appeared beside her, close enough that she could smell whatever expensive cologne he wore, something clean and cedar-scented that made her want to lean closer. "You have good form," he said, and his voice matched everything else about him, deep and confident with an underlying warmth that felt genuine. "How long have you been training?" Caroline blinked up at him, suddenly aware of how much taller he was. A few months. Well, on and off." "Mostly off lately. Could have fooled me." He extended a hand. "Gabriel Thompson." His hand was warm and calloused, the grip firm without being aggressive. "Caroline Reed." "Caroline." He said her name like he was testing how it felt, and she tried not to notice the way his thumb brushed across her knuckles before he let go. I haven't seen you here before. Do you usually come in the mornings? I try to. My schedule is unpredictable. She shifted her gym bag to her other shoulder, suddenly unsure what to do with her hands. You. Most mornings around this time. I travel a lot for work, but when I am in the city, I like to keep a routine. He paused and something flickered across his face. Uncertainty, maybe, which seemed impossible on someone who looked like him. Listen, this is going to sound forward, but would you like to grab coffee sometime? There is a place around the corner that makes a decent espresso. Caroline's brain short-circuited. Men like Gabriel Thompson did not ask women like her out for coffee. There had to be a catch, some angle she was missing. Maybe he was selling something. Maybe this was some elaborate prank. Why? The word came out before she could stop it. Gabriel laughed, a sound that transformed his entire face. Because I have watched you push through every single rep, even when you were clearly exhausted, because you have kind eyes, and because I would really like to get to know you better. Is that enough reason? I'm sweaty, Caroline said stupidly. So am I. Coffee places generally do not have dress codes. He pulled out his phone. What do you say, today after you clean up? Or if that is too soon, we could exchange numbers and figure out a time that works better. Caroline thought about her presentation, her mounting responsibilities, all the very logical reasons she should say no. Then she thought about how long it had been since someone looked at her the way Gabriel Thompson was looking at her right now, like she was the most interesting person in the room. Today works, she heard herself say. Give me 30 minutes. His smile could have powered the entire city. Perfect. I will meet you out front. Caroline practically ran to the locker room, her heart hammering against her ribs. She showered in record time, debating every item of clothing in her gym bag like it was a life or death decision. She had brought jeans and a simple green sweater, nothing fancy but clean and presentable. Her hair was still damp when she twisted it into a bun, and her makeup was minimal, just enough to look like she had tried without looking like she had tried too hard. Gabriel was waiting outside when she emerged, changed into dark jeans and a gray Henley that should have been casual but somehow looked designer. He had clearly showered too, his hair darker when wet, curling slightly at his temples. You clean up nice, he said, falling into step beside her as they headed down the street. You too. Caroline hugged her jacket tighter against the October chill. So what do you do that requires so much travel? I work in manufacturing. Steel production, mostly. A lot of site visits, meetings with clients, that kind of thing. It was not technically a lie, but Gabriel felt the weight of the omission anyway. He had learned early in life that leading with the fact that he owned Thompson Steel Industries, one of the largest privately held manufacturing companies in the country, tended to change how people treated him. And he really did not want Caroline to look at him differently. That sounds interesting. Do you enjoy it? Most days. It is the family business, so I grew up around it. He held the door open as they reached the coffee shop, a cozy place with exposed brick and the rich scent of fresh ground beans. What about you? What do you do when you are not conquering the gym? Caroline snorted. Conquering is a strong word. I work at an advertising agency, junior account manager, which is a fancy way of saying I handle all the grunt work while my boss takes credit for the wins. Sounds frustrating. It is what it is. I am paying my dues, learning the business. Someday I will be the one with the fancy title. She studied the menu board, trying to calculate whether she could afford the specialty drinks or should stick to regular coffee. Order whatever you want, Gabriel said quietly, as if reading her mind. My treat. You do not have to do that. I know I do not have to, I want to. He smiled at the barista, a college-aged girl who nearly dropped her pen when she got a good look at him. I will have a double espresso and whatever the lady wants. Caroline ordered a vanilla latte, and they found a table by the window, away from the handful of other patrons. The morning sun streamed through the glass, turning Gabriel's eyes a lighter shade of brown, almost amber. "So tell me about advertising," Gabriel said, wrapping his hands around his tiny espresso cup. "What made you choose that field?" Caroline shrugged, stirring her latte more than necessary. "I was good at writing in college, and I liked the creative problem-solving aspect. Every client is different. Every campaign is a new puzzle to solve. Plus, I am not going to lie, the idea of seeing my work on billboards and TV commercials was appealing. Have you had any big wins yet?" "A few small ones. I worked on a campaign for a local restaurant chain that increased their business by 30%. That felt good. But the big accounts go to the senior team. I am still proving myself." "I bet you are good at it." Gabriel said it with such certainty that Caroline looked up in surprise. "You barely know me. I know you do not give up. I saw that this morning. I know you are thoughtful and a little guarded, which suggests you have been hurt before and learned to be careful. I know you have a sense of humor, even if you are trying to hide it right now." He took a sip of his espresso. "Am I wrong?" Caroline felt exposed, like he had peeled back layers she kept carefully hidden. "That is a lot to gather from one gym session. I pay attention." He set down his cup, his expression turning serious. "Look, I know this is fast. We just met. But I am not playing games here, Caroline. I find you attractive and interesting, and I would really like to see where this could go. If that is too much too soon, tell me now and I will back off." She should tell him to back off. She should protect herself, maintain the walls she had built after her last relationship imploded. But something about Gabriel felt different. Maybe it was the directness in his gaze, the way he laid his cards on the table without pretense. Maybe she was just tired of being alone. "It is not too much," she said softly. "I am just out of practice with this. So we will figure it out together." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Tell me something else about yourself, something you do not put on a resume." They talked for 2 hours. Caroline learned that Gabriel had a younger sister he was protective of, that he had lost his father 5 years ago and still missed him daily, that he hated mushrooms and loved old movies and could quote entire scenes from The Princess Bride. He made her laugh with stories about disastrous business dinners, and the time he accidentally sent a text meant for his sister to his most important client. In turn, she told him about growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, about her mother's constant worry and her father's quiet support, about the year she spent backpacking through Europe after college that her family still thought was a reckless waste of money. She admitted she had a weakness for terrible reality TV and good pizza, that she cried during dog food commercials and got irrationally angry at people who did not use turn signals. When Gabriel finally checked his watch, he swore under his breath. "I have a meeting in 20 minutes. I have to go." Caroline felt the loss immediately, like someone had turned down the brightness on the world. "Of course, you have a life." "I do, but I would much rather stay here with you." He stood, then hesitated. "Can I see you again? Dinner maybe, a real date. I would like that. Tomorrow night." At her nod, he grinned. "Give me your phone. I will put in my number." They exchanged phones, and Caroline tried not to notice the expensive model he carried, the kind that had just been released and probably cost a small fortune. She saved his contact and handed it back. "Text me your address," Gabriel said. "I will pick you up at 7. You do not have to pick me up. I can meet you somewhere. Caroline." He said her name in a way that made her skin tingle. "I am picking you up. Let me do this properly." She relented, and he squeezed her hand before heading out the door. Through the window, she watched him walk to his car, watched the way other women on the street turned to look at him. And for some inexplicable reason, he had chosen to spend his morning with her. Caroline floated through the rest of her day. She barely noticed her boss's condescending tone during their project meeting, hardly cared when her coworker tried to take credit for her ideas. She had a date with Gabriel Thompson, and nothing else seemed to matter quite as much. That evening, she called her best friend Emily and recounted the entire story while standing in front of her closet in her underwear. "So let me get this straight," Emily said, her voice tinny over the phone speaker. "A gorgeous stranger asked you out at the gym, took you for coffee, and now you are going on a real date tomorrow. That is the summary, yes. And you are sure he is not a serial killer?" Caroline laughed, pulling out dress after dress and discarding each one. "Pretty sure. He was very normal." "Well, normal for someone who looks like he should be on a magazine cover. Did you Google him?" "What? No. Why would I Google him, Caroline? It is 2026. You always Google the guy before the first date. What is his last name?" "Thompson. Gabriel Thompson." "But Emily, that feels like an invasion of privacy. It is called being smart. Hang on, I am looking him up now." There was a pause, then Emily made a strangled sound. "Caroline." "What? Gabriel Thompson. Steel manufacturing. Does he work for Thompson Steel Industries?" "He said something about family business and steel." "Why, Caroline, he does not work for Thompson Steel Industries. He owns it. Gabriel Thompson is a billionaire. Like, actual Forbes list billionaire. Oh my God, you are going on a date with one of the richest men in the country." Caroline sat down hard on her bed. "That is not possible. I am looking at his picture right now. Is this him?" Emily must have sent a photo because Caroline's phone buzzed. She opened the message and saw Gabriel in a tuxedo at some charity gala, looking impossibly handsome and completely out of her league. "Oh God, this is amazing. Do you know what this means? You could be a billionaire's girlfriend. You would never have to work again." "Emily, stop." Caroline pressed her fingers to her temples. "This is not about money. Maybe not to you, but girl, you have to admit this changes things. Why is someone like him interested in someone like us? Thanks for the vote of confidence. You know what I mean. He could date models, actresses, heiresses. Why is he slumming it at a regular gym?" Caroline ended the call shortly after, claiming she needed to prepare for work the next day. But she spent half the night staring at her ceiling, wondering the same thing. Why her? What did Gabriel see that she could not see in herself? She almost texted him a dozen times to cancel. But every time she typed out the message, she remembered the way he had looked at her across the coffee shop table, the genuine interest in his questions, the warmth in his laugh. Billionaire or not, he had seemed real. The next day crawled by. Caroline changed her outfit 3 times before settling on a deep blue dress that made her eyes look greener, paired with heels that would probably cripple her by the end of the night but made her legs look amazing. She wore her hair down, spent far too long on her makeup, and was ready a full hour before Gabriel was supposed to arrive. When her doorbell rang at exactly 7, she took a deep breath and opened it. Gabriel stood in the hallway holding a single white rose, wearing dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. He looked devastating. "Hi," he said, his eyes traveling over her in a way that made her feel beautiful. "You look incredible." "Thank you, you too." "You did not have to bring a flower." "I wanted to." He handed her the rose and their fingers brushed. "Are you ready?" Caroline grabbed her purse and locked the door, hyper-aware of how small her apartment must seem to someone who probably lived in a penthouse somewhere. She followed Gabriel down to the street where his driver waited beside a sleek sedan. "You have a driver," she said, because apparently her brain had stopped filtering her thoughts. "I do. Is that okay? I thought we could both relax and not worry about parking." He opened the door for her, and she slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her couch. The restaurant was downtown, one of those places Caroline had read about but never imagined visiting. The kind of place that required reservations months in advance and served portions so small you needed to stop for pizza on the way home. But when they arrived, the host greeted Gabriel by name and led them to a private table in the back, away from the other diners. "You come here often?" Caroline asked, accepting the leather-bound menu from the server. "A few times for business dinners. The chef is exceptional and the privacy is nice." He studied her across the candlelit table. "You are nervous." "A little." "Why?" Caroline set down her menu. "Because I found out who you are." "Or what you are." "A billionaire, Gabriel. You could have mentioned that." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Would it have changed things? If I had led with that at the gym, would you have said yes to coffee? I do not know. Maybe not. That is why I did not mention it. I wanted you to know me, not my bank account." He reached across the table, waiting until she put her hand in his. "I am still the same person you talked to yesterday, Caroline. The money is just a fact, like my height or my eye color. It does not define who I am." "It kind of does, though. You live in a completely different world than I do. So help me understand yours. Teach me what matters to you. Let me show you that we are not as different as you think." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Unless you want to walk away right now, I will understand if you do. But I really hope you will not." Caroline looked at their joined hands, at the earnestness in his expression, and made a decision. "I am not walking away, but I need you to be honest with me. No more omissions. Deal? And same goes for you. Tell me when something bothers you, when I am being an idiot, when I come on too strong. This only works if we are both real with each other." The tension broke, and they ordered dinner. The food was as exceptional as Gabriel had promised, tiny perfect bites that somehow satisfied more than their size suggested. They talked through multiple courses, the conversation flowing as easily as it had the day before. Gabriel asked about her work, seemed genuinely interested in the campaigns she was developing. Caroline learned that he had studied engineering in college but switched to business when his father got sick and needed help running the company. "You regret it?" She asked over dessert, a chocolate creation that should have been illegal. "Not taking over the company. No, it was where I needed to be, but sometimes I wonder what my life would have looked like if I had stayed in engineering. Maybe I would have been happier working with my hands instead of sitting in boardrooms." "You still work out most mornings. That is working with your hands," he smiled. "True. It is the only time my brain shuts off completely. Just me and the weights, no one needing decisions or signatures." He paused. "Well, usually just me. Yesterday was better. Smooth. I try." He signaled for the check, and Caroline did not even want to think about what this meal had cost. "Do you have work tomorrow?" "Always." "Why?" "Because I do not want this night to end yet, and I was hoping you might take a walk with me." They left the restaurant and wandered through downtown, past lit storefronts and late-night coffee shops. The October air had turned cold, and Gabriel shrugged out of his jacket to drape it over Caroline's shoulders without breaking stride in their conversation. They talked about everything and nothing, their hands finding each other naturally, fingers intertwining like they had been doing this for years instead of hours. "Tell me about your family," Caroline said as they passed a park, empty except for a few dog walkers. "My mother lives in Connecticut. She spends most of her time managing the family foundation and terrorizing country club members with her tennis serve. My sister Madison is 23, just finished her master's degree in environmental science. She thinks what I do is destroying the planet and tells me so at every family dinner." "Is she right?" Gabriel considered it. "Partially. Steel production is not exactly green, but we have been investing heavily in more sustainable practices, cleaner technologies. I am trying to modernize the company, make it something my sister does not have to be ashamed of. That sounds hard. Balancing profit and principle. It is. Some of our board members think I am being reckless, spending too much on initiatives that will not pay off for years. But I can afford to take the long view. We are private, so I do not have to answer to shareholders who only care about quarterly returns. He squeezed her hand. Sorry, that is probably boring. It is not boring. I like hearing what you are passionate about. She stopped walking, turning to face him under a streetlight. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why me? And I do not want some line about kind eyes or good form. Really, Gabriel? You could date anyone. Why did you ask out the tired girl struggling with dumbbells? He stepped closer, his hands moving to her waist, his expression serious. Because when I walked into that gym yesterday, I was thinking about a dozen different things I did not want to think about. Problems at work, family obligations, the endless tedium of my schedule. And then I saw you, and everything else just stopped mattering. You looked so determined, so focused, like nothing in the world existed except you and that workout. It was beautiful. You were beautiful. Gabriel, I am not finished. And then you looked at me in the mirror and I saw something in your eyes. Recognition, maybe. Like you saw past all the surface stuff to something real underneath. It made me want to know you. It made me want to be known by you. He cupped her face in his hands. So that is why. Because in a life that feels increasingly hollow, you made me feel something genuine. Caroline's heart was trying to escape her chest. That is quite an answer. Was it okay? He looked uncertain, this powerful man who commanded boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. Instead of answering, she kissed him. Rose up on her toes and pressed her lips to his. Soft and tentative at first, then deeper when his arms wrapped around her. He kissed like he did everything else, with absolute focus and intensity, like she was the only thing in the universe that mattered. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. I have been wanting to do that since yesterday, he murmured. What took you so long? He laughed and kissed her again, slower this time, sweeter. They stood under that streetlight for a long time, trading kisses and quiet words, until Caroline finally admitted she had work in the morning and should probably go home. Gabriel's driver took them back to her apartment, and Gabriel walked her to her door like a gentleman from another era. Can I see you this weekend? He asked, still holding her hand. I would like that. Saturday, I could pick you up at noon, wear comfortable clothes. Where are we going? You will see. He kissed her one more time, gentle and lingering, then forced himself to step back. Text me when you get inside so I know you are safe. It is like 10 feet. Humor me. She did, watching through her peephole as he waited until his phone buzzed before heading back downstairs. Only then did Caroline allow herself to collapse against the door, grinning like an idiot. The rest of the week passed in a blur of texts and phone calls. Gabriel sent her good morning messages and random observations throughout his day. She learned he was in Chicago for meetings Wednesday and Thursday, that he hated hotel coffee, that he thought about her more than he should during important presentations. Caroline found herself checking her phone constantly, smiling at his messages, counting down the hours until Saturday. Emily insisted on coming over Friday night to help her prepare, which mostly involved raiding Caroline's closet and declaring everything insufficient. You need new clothes, Emily announced, holding up a sweater and frowning. When is the last time you went shopping? I go shopping. I got this sweater last year. Exactly my point. You are dating a billionaire now. You need to upgrade. I am not dating him for his money, and I am certainly not going to change who I am to keep up with him. Emily softened. I know, and that is probably why he likes you. But there is nothing wrong with wanting to look good for him. Let me take you shopping tomorrow morning. They compromised. Emily took her to a mall department store, not the designer boutique she had initially suggested, and helped Caroline pick out a few pieces that were nice without being outrageous. A soft burgundy sweater, dark jeans that made her legs look endless, a dress for future dates. Caroline paid with her own credit card despite Emily's protests, needing to maintain some independence in this increasingly surreal situation. Saturday arrived cold and crisp, the kind of autumn day that demanded apple cider and flannel. Caroline dressed in her new jeans and sweater, pulled her hair back in a loose braid, and was ready when Gabriel knocked at her door at noon precisely. He looked unfairly good in jeans and a navy jacket, his hair slightly wind-blown, his smile bright when he saw her. "Perfect," he said, kissing her cheek. "You look perfect. You said comfortable clothes. Where are we going? You will see." They drove out of the city, heading north into countryside that grew increasingly rural. Gabriel kept one hand on the wheel and the other tangled with hers, asking about her week, telling her about his meetings in Chicago. After about an hour, they turned down a long gravel driveway that led to a sprawling farm with red barns and white fences. "Is this yours?" Caroline asked as they parked. "It is. Well, my family's. We have owned it for 3 generations, but no one has actively farmed it in years. I come out here sometimes when I need to think." He helped her out of the car. "I wanted to show it to you." They walked through fields gone golden with autumn, past the barns where Gabriel said his grandfather used to keep horses. He showed her the main house, empty but maintained, filled with family photos and antique furniture. In the kitchen, he unpacked a picnic basket Caroline had not noticed him carrying. "You brought lunch. I thought we could eat here. I wanted to show you something important to me without all the noise of the city." He spread out food on the old wooden table. Sandwiches, fruit, cookies that looked homemade. "Did you make these?" Caroline picked up a chocolate chip cookie. "Madison did. She stress bakes when she is working on her thesis. I may have mentioned I needed provisions for an important date." He watched as she bit into the cookie. Verdict: "Your sister is a genius. Tell her to forget environmental science and open a bakery." They ate lunch sitting on the kitchen floor, backs against the cabinets, shoulders touching. Gabriel told her stories about summers spent here as a child, about learning to fish in the pond beyond the north field, about the time he and Madison tried to catch a chicken and ended up chasing it for 3 hours. "I want to bring Madison and my mother to meet you," he said eventually. "Not today, not this week, but soon. They are important to me and you are becoming important to me." Caroline's heart clenched. "That is fast. I know. Does it scare you a little? I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop for this to stop feeling real." He turned to face her fully, his expression intense. "It is real, Caroline. What I feel for you is real. I know we have only known each other a week, and I know my life comes with complications. But I have never felt this way about anyone, and I do not want to waste time pretending otherwise." "Gabriel, I work in advertising. I live in a tiny apartment and shop at Target. I am so ordinary compared to your world." "You are not ordinary. You are extraordinary, and the fact that you cannot see that makes me want to spend every day proving it to you." He took her hand. "I do not need you to be anything other than exactly who you are. That is who I am falling for." Caroline kissed him then, tasting chocolate and truth and possibility. They spent the afternoon exploring the property, and Gabriel taught her to skip stones at the pond. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they sat on the dock with their feet dangling over the water. "I could get used to this," Caroline said softly. "Good, because I plan on bringing you back here often." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close against the evening chill. "What are you doing next weekend?" "Probably laundry and meal prep." "Why?" "Come to Connecticut with me. My mother is hosting a charity gala, and she has been pestering me to bring someone." "I was not planning on going, but with you there, it might actually be bearable." "A charity gala? Gabriel, I do not even know what I would wear to something like that." "We will figure it out. Say yes, please." She should have said no. Should have pumped the brakes on this relationship that was moving at breakneck speed. But when she looked at Gabriel, at the hope and vulnerability in his expression, she found herself nodding. "Yes. Okay. But you have to promise to stay with me the whole time." "I do not know how to navigate your world." "Deal. And Caroline, you will be the most beautiful woman there." The next week passed in a flurry of preparation. Gabriel sent his personal shopper to Caroline's apartment with options for the gala. And despite her protests, she found herself trying on gowns that cost more than her monthly rent. She settled on a deep emerald dress that made her feel like someone else entirely, someone sophisticated and confident. Gabriel picked her up Friday evening, and they drove to Connecticut in comfortable silence, her hand in his. His mother's estate was even more impressive than the farm, a sprawling mansion that looked like something from a movie. Gabriel seemed to sense her anxiety because he kept her hand firmly in his as they walked inside. "Remember, you are here with me. Nothing else matters." The gala was overwhelming. Hundreds of people in designer clothes, champagne flowing freely, conversations about things Caroline barely understood. But Gabriel kept his promise. He stayed by her side, introduced her to everyone as someone important, not just his date. And when Caroline made a joke that had a senator laughing so hard he snorted champagne, Gabriel looked at her with such pride and affection that she forgot to be nervous. She met his mother, Patricia Thompson, an elegant woman with Gabriel's eyes and a handshake like iron. "So you are the one who has my son smiling again," Patricia said, studying Caroline with interest. "He has mentioned you several times. All good things, I hope. He said you keep him honest. That is rare. Most people just tell him what he wants to hear." Patricia smiled, and it softened her whole face. "I look forward to getting to know you better, Caroline." Madison was less subtle. She cornered Caroline in the bathroom during dessert, her expression curious and slightly suspicious. "My brother has terrible taste in women," Madison announced without preamble. "He usually goes for these vapid socialite types who care more about his net worth than his actual worth. But you seem different." Thank you. Do not hurt him. He acts all tough and businesslike, but he is actually a softy underneath. If you are just playing around or using him for his money, I will make your life miserable." Caroline could not help but laugh. "I can see the family resemblance. And for what it is worth, I am terrified I am not good enough for him. But I really care about your brother, and I am not going anywhere unless he asks me to." Madison studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Good. Now let us get back before he sends a search party." He has been checking his watch every 30 seconds. The evening ended late, and Gabriel's mother insisted they stay the night in one of the guest rooms. Caroline found herself in a bedroom larger than her entire apartment, wearing borrowed pajamas, staring at the ceiling and wondering how her life had changed so completely in just 2 weeks. There was a soft knock on her door, and Gabriel poked his head in. "Can I come in? It is your house." "It is my mother's house, and these are her rules. Separate bedrooms for unmarried guests." He sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand. "Did you have an okay time?" "I had a great time. Your mother is intimidating but kind. Your sister threatened me in the bathroom." Gabriel groaned. "What did she say?" "That you have terrible taste in women and I should not hurt you." "She is not wrong about the first part. Before you, I was dating someone whose idea of deep conversation was debating which Hampton's Beach Club had the best cabanas. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Thank you for coming tonight. Having you here made all the difference. I like your family. They like you too, I could tell. He leaned down and kissed her softly. Get some sleep. I am taking you somewhere special tomorrow. The somewhere special turned out to be a small diner in a nearby town, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee served in thick ceramic mugs. Gabriel ordered pancakes and bacon, and they sat in a corner booth reading the Sunday paper like an old married couple. This is my favorite place, Gabriel admitted. I have been coming here since I was a kid. The owner, Frank, used to let Madison and me wash dishes in exchange for pie. Does he know who you are now? Sure. But he still charges me full price for my pancakes and gives me grief when I do not visit enough. Gabriel waved to an older man behind the counter. That is Frank. Come on, I will introduce you. Frank turned out to be exactly the kind of person Caroline had expected, gruff and warm in equal measure. He shook her hand and told Gabriel he had done well, which made Gabriel light up like a kid receiving praise from a favorite teacher. On the drive back to the city, Caroline found herself thinking about how many sides Gabriel had. The business titan, the devoted son and brother, the regular guy who liked diners and old barns. And somehow, impossibly, he was choosing to share all of those sides with her. What are you thinking about? Gabriel asked, glancing over at her. How happy I am. How scary that is. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. I know what you mean, but we will figure it out together. The following weeks fell into a pattern. They saw each other as often as their schedules allowed, stealing mornings at the gym and evenings over dinner. Gabriel showed up at Caroline's office one day with lunch, charming her coworkers and making her boss suddenly remember her name. Caroline dragged him to her favorite pizza place and made him eat from paper plates while sitting on a park bench, which he claimed was the best meal he had eaten all week. They learned each other's rhythms and quirks. Gabriel needed quiet in the mornings before his coffee kicked in. Caroline got stressed when work piled up and needed to talk through problems out loud. Gabriel left sweet notes in places she would find them later. Caroline sent him terrible memes in the middle of his meetings that made him laugh during presentations, but it was not all perfect. A month into their relationship, they had their first real fight. Gabriel had made reservations at an exclusive restaurant without asking if Caroline was free, just assuming she would rearrange her schedule. When she pushed back, saying she had plans with Emily, he seemed genuinely confused. I thought you would want to go. It is impossible to get a table there. That is not the point. You cannot just decide what I am doing without asking me first. I was trying to do something nice. I know, but Gabriel, my life does not revolve around you. I have friends and commitments that matter to me. They argued for 20 minutes before Gabriel finally heard what she was saying. You are right. I am sorry. I am used to making decisions and having people accommodate them. I need to remember that you are not an employee or a business partner. You are my girlfriend and you deserve to be consulted, not informed. Caroline softened at the genuine apology. Thank you, and I am sorry for snapping. I do want to spend time with you. Just ask me first next time. Deal. Now go have fun with Emily and text me when you get home safe. 2 months in, Gabriel invited Caroline to his penthouse apartment for the first time. She had been curious but hesitant, somehow convinced that seeing where he lived would emphasize the vast difference between their worlds. But the space, while obviously expensive, was surprisingly warm. Filled with books and family photos, comfortable furniture that looked actually sat in, artwork that seemed chosen for meaning rather than investment value. This is nice, Caroline said, examining a painting of the ocean. "It feels like you. Is that good or bad?" "Very good." She turned to face him. "I was worried it would be all cold marble and abstract sculptures. I had enough of that growing up. When I bought this place, I wanted it to feel like home." He pulled her close, his hand settling at her waist. "I am glad you like it. I was hoping you might want to spend more time here." "How much more time?" "However much you want. I know it is early and I am not asking you to move in or anything, but you could keep some things here. Stay over when you want, make this space yours too." Caroline's heart swelled. "I would like that." They spent the evening cooking together, Gabriel proving surprisingly competent in the kitchen despite claiming he usually lived on takeout. They danced in the living room to old jazz records, and Caroline felt herself falling deeper, the ground disappearing beneath her feet in the best possible way. "I love you," Gabriel said suddenly, the words falling into the quiet space between songs. Caroline's breath caught. "What?" "I love you," Caroline read. "I have loved you for weeks, and I am tired of not saying it." He cupped her face in his hands. "You do not have to say it back, I just needed you to know. I love you too." The words came easily, feeling right and true. "I have been terrified to admit it, but I love you so much it scares me." He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and they did not make it to the bedroom until much later, wrapped up in each other and new promises. The holidays approached rapidly. Gabriel asked Caroline to spend Thanksgiving with his family, and she invited him to meet her parents the following weekend. Both occasions were mildly terrifying and ultimately wonderful. Patricia Thompson treated Caroline like a daughter. Madison engaged her in detailed debates about environmental policy, and Caroline's parents were charmed by Gabriel's genuine interest in their lives and his willingness to help her father fix a leaking sink. "He is a good man," her father told her privately. "He looks at you the way I look at your mother, like you are the best thing that ever happened to him." Christmas came with an unexpected gift. Gabriel presented Caroline with a key to his penthouse, and she gave him a framed photo of them at the farm, laughing in the autumn sun. "Move in with me," Gabriel said softly, holding the photo like it was precious. "I know it is fast, but I do not want to spend another night without you. Make this official." Caroline thought about her tiny apartment, about the walls she had built around her heart, about the risk of saying yes. Then she thought about waking up next to Gabriel every morning, about building a life together, about the joy she felt whenever she was with him. Yes. Okay, yes. They spent New Year's Eve packing up her apartment, laughing over terrible decorations and questionable fashion choices from her past. At midnight, surrounded by boxes in Gabriel's living room, he kissed her and whispered promises about the future they were building together. The new year brought changes. Caroline got a promotion at work, her boss finally recognizing her talent after Gabriel casually mentioned at a company event how lucky they were to have her. She started keeping regular hours at the penthouse, her things mingling with Gabriel's until the space truly felt like theirs. But with the good came challenges. In February, a business deal went bad, and Gabriel spent 2 weeks traveling constantly, stressed and short-tempered. Caroline gave him space when he needed it and support when he asked for it, learning the balance of being a partner to someone with enormous responsibilities. In March, Caroline's ex-boyfriend showed up at her office, wanting to reconcile. Gabriel found out and had to fight the instinct to interfere, to use his resources to make the problem disappear. Caroline handled it herself, making it clear she was happy and in love with someone else. That night, Gabriel apologized for his initial reaction. "I trust you. I need to do better at showing that. You do show it. You just love me and want to protect me, I get it, but I need to fight my own battles sometimes. I know. I am still learning this, how to be with someone as an equal, not as someone who needs saving or managing. They worked through it, the relationship growing stronger with each challenge overcome. In April, they took a trip to Europe, retracing some of Caroline's backpacking route and creating new memories together. Gabriel proposed on a bridge in Paris, a moment so cliché and perfect that Caroline laughed even as tears streamed down her face. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The ring was beautiful, a simple diamond that caught the light and made everything feel suddenly more real. They called their families from a cafe, celebrating with champagne and pastries while video chatting with Patricia and Madison, with Caroline's parents who cried happy tears. Planning the wedding was easier than either expected. They both wanted something intimate, meaningful rather than showy. They settled on the farm in Connecticut, late September when the leaves would be changing. Just family and close friends, a celebration of love rather than a display of wealth. Madison stood as Gabriel's best person, fiercely protective and increasingly fond of Caroline. Emily was Caroline's maid of honor, still slightly starstruck by the whole situation but happy for her friend. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt, Gabriel's voice catching as he promised to love Caroline for the rest of his life, Caroline's hands shaking as she slid the ring onto his finger. "I never expected this," she whispered during their first dance. "When you asked me out at the gym, I never imagined it would lead here." "I knew," Gabriel murmured against her hair. "Maybe not that first day, but soon after. You worked your way into my heart, Caroline Thompson. You made me believe in the possibility of real love. Caroline Thompson. I am still getting used to that. Well, you have the rest of our lives to practice." They honeymooned in New Zealand, 2 weeks of hiking and adventure and lazy mornings in bed. When they returned, Caroline moved fully into planning the next phase of her career. With Gabriel's encouragement, she started her own small advertising consultancy, taking on clients she cared about and building something that felt meaningful. Gabriel continued running Thompson Steel, but with Caroline's influence, he became bolder in his sustainability initiatives. He brought her to board meetings, valued her perspective, made changes that his father might not have understood but that felt right for the future. A year into their marriage, Caroline found out she was pregnant. They were both terrified and thrilled, spending hours talking about the kind of parents they wanted to be, the life they wanted to build for their child. Gabriel installed a nursery in the penthouse with windows overlooking the city, and Caroline painted a mural of the farm on one wall, wanting their daughter to know both sides of her heritage. Lily Rose Thompson was born on a snowy December morning, tiny and perfect and loved beyond measure. Gabriel cried when he held her for the first time, this powerful man reduced to overwhelmed awe by the weight of his daughter in his arms. "She has your eyes," he told Caroline, his voice choked with emotion. "She has your stubbornness already. Feel that grip." They settled into parenthood with the same teamwork that had defined their relationship. Gabriel took paternity leave, shocking his board of directors but standing firm. These early months with his family mattered more than any business deal. Caroline worked from home, building her consultancy around the rhythms of a new baby, finding balance in the chaos. Madison was a devoted aunt, showing up with environmental science books for babies and promises to teach Lily about sustainability as soon as she could walk. Patricia visited weekly, sharing wisdom and stories from when Gabriel was small. Caroline's parents made the trip from Pennsylvania monthly, her mother crying happy tears over every milestone. 2 years later, they found out they were expecting again. Twin boys this time, and Gabriel joked that they were going to need a bigger place. They bought a house in the suburbs with a yard for the kids and easy access to the city. Caroline designed every room with care, making sure it felt like home rather than a showpiece. James and Thomas Thompson arrived early, 2 months premature and terrifyingly small. The NICU weeks were the hardest of their lives, Gabriel and Caroline taking turns keeping vigil, supporting each other through fear and exhaustion. But the boys were fighters, and eventually they came home, completing their family in a way that felt perfect and right. Life became beautifully chaotic. Diaper changes and bedtime stories, board meetings and client pitches, family dinners and quiet moments stolen between the demands of work and parenting. Gabriel and Caroline navigated it all together, their love growing deeper with each challenge, each triumph, each ordinary, extraordinary day. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they returned to the gym where they had first met. It was early morning and they had convinced Madison to babysit overnight, giving them a rare chance to be just a couple again. "You remember?" Gabriel asked as they walked through the doors. "Every second. You were so confident, asking me out like you knew I would say yes. I was terrified. You have no idea how nervous I was." They went through a workout together, laughing at how out of practice they were, how much their lives had changed since those early days. Afterward, they got coffee at the same shop, sitting at the same table by the window. "If you could go back," Gabriel said, stirring his espresso, "would you change anything?" Caroline thought about it. The fear and uncertainty, the challenges of merging their different worlds, the arguments and compromises and difficult moments. She thought about Lily's laugh and the twins' matching dimples, about the home they had built and the life they shared. Not a single thing. "Every moment led us here, and here is exactly where I want to be." "Me too." He reached across the table, his hand finding hers like it had 1,000 times before. "I love you, Caroline, today and always. I love you too." They sat there for a while, two people who had started as strangers and become partners in every sense of the word. Outside, the city woke up around them, full of possibility and promise. And inside, they held hands across a coffee shop table, grateful for the chance encounter that had changed everything. Years continued to pass in a blur of joy and challenge. Lily started school. The twins learned to walk and talk and get into everything. Caroline's consultancy grew into something significant, representing brands she believed in and working with clients who valued her vision. Gabriel transformed Thompson Steel into an industry leader in sustainable manufacturing, proving that profit and principle could coexist. They celebrated milestones and weathered storms. Birthdays and anniversaries, business successes and setbacks, the normal ups and downs of life and love. Through it all, they came back to each other, to the foundation they had built in those early days when everything was new and uncertain. On their 10th anniversary, Gabriel took Caroline back to the farm. The kids were with Patricia for the weekend, and they had the place to themselves. They walked through the fields where he had first told her he was falling for her, sat by the pond where they had talked about dreams and fears. "Do you ever wonder how different our lives would be if I had not asked you out that day?" Gabriel asked, skipping a stone across the water. "Sometimes, but I try not to dwell on alternate timelines. This timeline, our timeline, is pretty perfect, even with the chaos. Especially with the chaos." She leaned into him, his arm coming around her shoulders automatically. "You know what I think about most? How scared I was in the beginning, how sure I was that this could not work, that we were too different. And now I know that those differences made us stronger. You showed me a world I never imagined, and I helped ground you in what matters. We made each other better." Gabriel turned to face her fully, his hands framing her face the way he had 1,000 times before. "I never expected this, you know. When I walked into that gym 10 years ago, I was just looking for a workout, and I found my entire future instead. Best workout of your life, without question." He kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. "Here is to the next 10 years, and the 10 after that. And every day we get together. I will work out with you anytime." They laughed, and the sound carried across the farm, across the years, a testament to a love that had started with a simple question at a gym and grown into a lifetime of partnership and joy. Behind them, the sun set over the fields, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. And before them stretched all the tomorrows they would face together. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful from that chance meeting. Caroline thought about that scared, tired girl who had almost canceled her gym membership, who could never have imagined the life waiting for her. And she thought about the confident billionaire who had seen past his own world to notice someone real and genuine. How lucky they were that their paths had crossed that particular morning in that particular place. Because some workouts change your body, but this one had changed everything. It had worked into Gabriel's heart exactly as he had never expected, and she had let him work his way into hers. And from that unexpected beginning had grown a love story worth telling, worth celebrating, worth living every single day. Their children grew. Lily became passionate about art, covering every surface she could reach with drawings and paintings. James developed his father's love of building things, constantly taking apart toys to understand how they worked. Thomas inherited his mother's way with words, telling elaborate stories that kept the whole family entertained. Gabriel and Caroline watched them grow with pride and amazement, grateful for the family they had created together. Work continued to evolve. Caroline eventually merged her consultancy with a larger firm, becoming a partner and expanding her influence in the industry. Gabriel groomed a successor at Thompson Steel, gradually stepping back to focus more on philanthropy and spending time with family. They found balance in ways that worked for them, always coming back to what mattered most. On their 20th anniversary, they threw a party at the farm. Everyone they loved gathered to celebrate, 3 generations coming together to mark 2 decades of marriage. Lily, now 16 and wise beyond her years, gave a toast that made both her parents cry. "My dad always says that Mom worked into his heart without him expecting it. But from where I stand, they worked their way into each other's hearts. They built something together that gave me and my brothers a foundation of love and security. They showed us what partnership looks like, what real love means. And they proved that sometimes the best things in life come from taking chances on people who seem different from us on the surface, but are perfect for us underneath." Later that night, after the guests had gone home and the kids were asleep in their childhood bedrooms, Gabriel and Caroline sat on the porch watching the stars. 20 years, Caroline mused. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like we have been together forever. Both things can be true. You are my yesterday, my today, and all my tomorrows, Caroline Thompson. Still smooth after all these years. I try. He pulled her closer, and they sat in comfortable silence. 2 people who no longer needed words to communicate, who understood each other on a level that went beyond language. The future stretched ahead of them, full of unknown challenges and guaranteed joys. There would be more milestones to celebrate, more obstacles to overcome, more ordinary days that somehow became extraordinary simply because they faced them together. College applications and empty nests, new ventures and old dreams, the continuation of a love story that had started with the simplest of questions. Would you like to grab coffee sometime? And Caroline, looking at the man who had asked that question 2 decades ago, who had worked his way into her heart workout by workout, day by day, moment by moment, knew that her answer would always be yes. Yes to coffee. Yes to conversation. Yes to building a life together. Yes to all the expected and unexpected turns their journey would take. Because some love stories start with grand gestures and dramatic declarations. But theirs had started at a gym, with tired muscles and tentative smiles, with one person brave enough to ask and another brave enough to say yes. And from that beginning had grown something neither of them could have imagined, something that got stronger with every passing year. As they headed inside, hands intertwined as naturally as breathing, Caroline sent a silent thank you to her past self. The girl who had been too tired to go to the gym that morning but went anyway. The girl who had said yes to coffee despite all her doubts. The girl who had taken a chance on love even when it seemed impossible, because impossible things happened every day. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, the workout really did work into your heart, changing everything in the best possible way. They closed the door behind them, leaving the stars to shine over the farm where so much of their story had unfolded. Inside, their family slept peacefully, proof of the life they had built from that single moment of connection. And outside, the world continued turning, full of other people, other gyms, other chances for unexpected love to take root and grow. But this was their story, their love. Their happily ever after, earned through trust and effort, and the simple courage to ask someone out and the equal courage to say yes. And as Gabriel kissed his wife goodnight, tasting the smile on her lips, he knew that no amount of money, no business deal, no achievement could ever compare to the joy of building a life with the woman who had captured his heart the moment she looked at him in a gym mirror all those years ago. 20 years down, forever to go, and every day between them a gift wrapped in love and tied with commitment, a present they gave each other with every sunrise, every sunset, every heartbeat in between. That was their story, and it was perfect.